Hey there, my friends. It's Bill McDonald, the reading and writing doctor, and I want to welcome you to lesson one of what I'm going to be calling meaningful modeling and mentoring methods in 10 minutes or less. You may have heard of the movie Gone in 60 Seconds. Well, based on the 10 minutes or less concept, every single lesson that you watch in what we're going to call the meaningful modeling and mentoring methods in 10 minutes or less will be gone in 600 seconds. Not 60 seconds, but 600 seconds or less. And I'm going to set the timer so that we make sure that when we get to 10 minutes, we sign off however far we've gotten in the lesson. That way you can know for sure that when you're watching, you'll have 5 to 10 minutes to spare. Today's lesson is going to be focusing on using what I'm going to call the TEA rubric for a 5, how to get a 5, treating the rubric, the scoring guide, if you want to call it that, like a Bible. So tune in. Before I start the timer, you might want to get a blank sheet of paper, 8.5 by 11, fold it into 4 sections, and have either a box of crayons or a box of colored pencils. All right, so let me start my timer. When the timer goes off, that means that 9 minutes have passed and that I have to finish within 1 minute. Okay, so as I mentioned, you're going to want to get a piece of paper and fold it in half for an informative, expository, or opinion argumentative essay. To score a 5, we have to think of 4 sections. So when you fold the paper in half, place a red I in what we'll call section 1, a yellow D in section 2, a green D in section 3, and a red C up there in section 4. All right. Now, everything that I wrote here is based on what the rubric, the scoring guide, says on how to get a 5. So I don't want to teach you just how to get a 1, a 2, or a 3. I want to start off with our first lesson on what the rubric says on how to get a 5. Okay. And the way you get a 5 is 3 points in the area of organization and development, and 2 points in the area of conventions. So we'll put that all together as quickly as possible. And so you'll see some red, some yellow, some green, and then some more red on the other page. All right, just so you know, the I, that the 2 D's in the middle, and the C are going to stand for what needs to be in the introduction, the body, and conclusion. So when you fold it in 4 parts, you might want to set up IBC on the left-hand side, red, yellow, green, and then red again. So what are some things that are important? You have to have controlling idea, a thesis, a central idea statement, or a claim if you're doing in opinion argumentative. Okay, so that would be step one. Your introduction, you have to have an idea or dual ideas if it's a dual prompt that responds to the topic. See what else we have written here. There's an the organization is effective, and you'll notice an effective introduction and conclusion in order to get the three. So I have the word introduction, effective, and on the bottom I have conclusion, effective. Now, since you can only get 3 points in organization and development, I went ahead and pointed to the three. That if they read that and see that is the case, then you can say hello to a three. Let's go down a little bit. The next thing it says, we have in yellow, the sentences, paragraphs, ideas are logically connected in purposeful, meaningful ways. What does that mean? That as you transition, everything ties together. So I have a T here for transition and tie, and a T here in the body because the evidence and the way you explain it has to tie together, and a T down here before the conclusion because everything has to tie together, whether we're talking about what it says there, your sentences, your paragraphs, your ideas, uh, connected in meaningful ways. What's the next part? The evidence is well chosen and relevant. So that first part of the body, you have to make sure, think of the word examples, then evidence, and in case you can't see it there because of the yellow highlighting, it says that it has to be relevant and related. So make sure that whatever evidence you decide to use, it's going to be related and relevant to the idea that you shared and the topic that was assigned. And I want you to notice in the D for development part where you explain, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different S's. And so if you decide to use one example of evidence, turn yellow to green by just explaining it. If you have 2 examples of evidence, you've got to explain both. 3 examples of evidence, got purple there, explain all 3. You have 4 examples of evidence, you have to explain all 4. If you think of inferencing as infer, read between the lines, well, explaining is writing between the lines. So if you think of each finger as an example of evidence you use, the way you explain it is coming from your own head. What does that example of evidence mean? What does that one mean, etc. However many you use, they just expect you to explain it. Let's look and see where they talk about that. Okay. Specific, in other words, don't just give me the evidence. Be specific and well chosen in the way that you explain it. Your word choice is specific, purposeful, and enhances the response. So that's why I have in here the 3. Once you're explaining, effective word choice, your phrases, and your sentences. So don't just explain your ideas. In order to get the 3, they're going to be looking for your word choices, your phrases, and your sentences to see if they're vivid and precise. Your last part, remember that we have to have an effective conclusion, and we want to make sure that we have effective transitions So that means don't just have everybody write in conclusion or just restating everything that they already wrote. That would be a present conclusion, which we'll get into when we talk about a two. But if all you're doing is restating the prompt and then restating your ideas over and over again throughout the body and then restating again in conclusion, that's probably not going to be very effective. So make sure that you try to, what I will show you in another video, how do you rephrase what you've written in a different way? How do you reflect to make the reader really think and ponder the ideas that you've shared with them? So that last 2 points that you can earn, the way to get the 4 or the 5 is the conventions, improving the grammar with cups, capitalization, usage, punctuation, spelling, and sentence boundaries. In other words, check for run-ons and fragments. There's my 1-minute warning. Turn that off so that's not annoying for you. And check for content before you turn it in by adding, removing, replacing, or moving things. And it says here that in order to do well in the conventions, you have to have a consistent command of grade level appropriate conventions, which is basically glorified cups. Just don't forget that you also want to improve the content, which is how it's organized and developed before you turn it in. And that's a simplified version, student made, on how to get a 5 from 2 different readers. And since that's what the rubric says, that's what you want to teach your kids to try and work their way to as you teach the process of writing. Goodbye. God bless. Please share this video or tag your writing teacher friends. For those of you who are in the Texas tour of trainings, go to page 47 and 48 of the binder. What I've done for you is I put the rubric scoring guide into 2 pages because I didn't like that the state had it in 3 pages. It just seems to be taking up too much space. So I condensed it to 2 pages to help you out. So that would be a student-made rubric scoring guide, just using a sheet of paper and the colors red, green, yellow, and then depending on how many examples you have, those other colors that we put in S. Email me if you have a question. Share or tag this with your teacher friends. God bless and have a great day.